It's been revealed that Jeff Bezos has made NASA an offer they can't refuse. At the moment, he's trying to secure a manned lunar lander with his company Blue Origin, with reports suggesting that he's offered the space agency $2 billion. His company Blue Origin, NASA, and SpaceX have recently been making headlines, and this was because NASA decided to award SpaceX with a $2.9 billion lunar lander contract. This didn't go down well with Bezos, and he's currently in the middle of filing complaints with the Government Accountability Office, saying that NASA is clearly favoring SpaceX over Blue Origin. Bezos went on to say that NASA giving SpaceX the contract was a mistake, but noted that it isn't too late to take it back, and that he would give them an offer they couldn't refuse, saying that he has big plans when it comes to space travel. Some have suggested this is one of the reasons why it's taken a step back from Amazon, and that he now plans to use this time wisely building giant rockets and building large structures on nearby celestial bodies. Bezos also announced that his company Blue Origin will be taking people to the moon by 2024, and that it plans to establish a lunar base. The Blue Moonlander, which is an unnamed spacecraft, was recently revealed to the world, and it's reported that it's able to carry up to 6.5 metric tons for deposits on the moon, which they've said will allow them to start building a framework on the lunar surface. Blue Origin said the following on their website: Blue Moon is a flexible lander delivering a wide variety of small, medium, and large payloads to the lunar surface. Whether cargo or crew, its capabilities to provide precise and soft landings will enable a sustained human presence on the moon. The cargo lander variant is designed to provide reliable, repeatable, and cost-effective delivery of a wide variety of payloads to the lunar surface. Based upon configuration and mission, we can land up to several metric tons of payload on the moon, ranging from large rovers, habitats, and ascent stages. The service facilitates greater opportunities to conduct science, on-site resource utilization, infrastructure development, and logistics missions for government, academia, and commercial customers. Bezos said the following: "We've been given a gift, this nearby body called the moon." He continued to say that getting resources of the moon takes 24 times less energy than getting it off the Earth. He continued to say the following: "We need the new engine, and that's what this is. It's time to go back to the moon in this time's day." Some people find these comments interesting. One user had this to say: "Fair play to Jeff Bezos. He's reached a point where he can offer the biggest space agency in the world billions of dollars to change their mind on their decision. There really aren't many people that can do that." While another person said this: "Space exploration is important, and I feel like we need to understand the space around us. There will come a point when we may have to get off this planet and look for other resources, but I can't see humans ever making it out of the solar system. All of those billions of dollars would be better spent on our planet." I'm not saying that money fixes problems, because the majority of times it doesn't. But what it can do is help a lot of people. As of right now, Blue Origin is looking to the stars and hope that within the next few years they will establish a large base on the moon. Recently, scientists have carried out a variety of tests on the moon. NASA officials and researchers have often attempted to theorize the contents of the moon, as well as its surface materials, ever since the beginning of the space age and efforts to retrieve lunar material. There was hope that the moon would prove to be a far more capable life-bearing body, as it's the closest celestial body to Earth. However, evidence retrieved from the moon after the original moon landings proved that estimates could not be more inaccurate. Unlike our planet, the moon isn't protected by a magnetic field of any kind and is constantly bombarded by a significant amount of helium-3 as a product of solar wind radiation. Is this constant bombardment that would lead to the lack of any life-bearing developments on the moon of any kind, including any attempt at finding naturally occurring water on the surface of the moon? Oddly enough, however, recent satellite imaging has provided what the National Aeronautics and Space Administration has referred to as unambiguous data that shows evidence of large reservoirs of water on the surface of the moon. The satellite evidence published in the September 25th issue of the journal Science provided details that deepen lunar craters that are shadowed from solar radiation. There are large pockets of ice that could store enough water to allow for the establishment of permanent lunar bases. The evidence of these ice craters provides evidence that the water molecules on the moon are incredibly mobile, allowing them to find their way to the craters and pawing at the bottom. In fact, planetary geologist Carly Peters said the following: "They provide a mechanism for getting water to those permanent shadow craters, and this opens up a whole new avenue of lunar research, but we have to understand the physics to utilize it." Not only does this discovery have profound implications for lunar research and planetary geology, but it also provides enough evidence and support for the establishment of lunar colonization that could see itself in use within the next few decades. As NASA has been working on their Moon to Mars mission that will use our orbital satellite as a launching point for rocketry and further colonization of the Martian surface. NASA's at the forefront of space exploration. They've been vocal about how they want to carry on sending humans and robots into the cosmos, and that hopefully in the near future we will have bases on the Moon and Mars. These missions have only inspired people to dream about the wonders of our universe. SpaceX has announced their plan to send over 1 million people to Mars by 2050. Not only this, but they plan to build an entire city for these people, in the hopes that a new civilization can be started. So what do you make of these recent announcements? Through all of the changes that our planet has undergone in its history, one thing remains certain. Our world is a strange one, full of new mysteries and captivating occurrences. We are constantly uncovering new and fascinating things that show us just how little we really know about our world and how genuinely surprising it can be at times. So today, we will be looking at 3 instances where humans uncovered something truly interesting, and what it meant for our understanding of the Earth. Long-lost continent under Indian Ocean. The 7 continents across our world are among the first things every child learns in school, and it is easy to imagine they have always been the same. However, due to the shifting of tectonic plates across the Earth's outer layers, the configuration of the land and water we are familiar with today bears little resemblance to the configurations of aeons past. Recently, scientists have discovered a small clue that gives us a sneak peek into the topography of the past. The discovery was made by researchers on the small volcanic island Mauritius, which lies east of Madagascar. Analysis of the volcanic matter making up the island allowed scientists to determine that the island was not much older than 8.9 million years, as that was the age of the oldest basalt on the surface. However, recent analysis of beach sand taken from 2 different locations on the island revealed several tiny zirconium silicate crystals that dated much later, from between 660 million years ago and 1.97 billion years ago. So where did these ancient fragments come from, and what significance do they have for the researchers studying them? Bjorn Jonvit, one of the researchers performing these analyses on Mauritius, believes that the fragments are hundreds of millions of years older than the rest of the island, because they originate from parts of an ancient microcontinent that stood in between Madagascar and India in the Indian Ocean billions of years ago. This was until the shifting of the tectonic plates caused it to break apart and sink below the waves to fuse with the continental crust. Janvith suggested that Mauritius lies above one of these fragments, and volcanic eruptions on the island caused fragments of the much older continent to be spewed across the beaches, where waves and time eroded the volcanic parent rocks into the zircons that the researchers found. To make this theory plausible, they had to rule out other locations as sources of the ancient fragments, which was not difficult to do. Mauritius is so remote that the nearest geological outcropping that could serve as a potential source of zircon is Madagascar, which sits over 900 kilometers away, ruling out wind or water transport, and so few humans that human contamination is equally unlikely. The zircon pieces were just the first indication of the underlying continent, as their presence only indicates one geographical region to the former continent, and the researchers' hypothesis suggests several fragments spread through the area. Further analysis of the gravitational field across a broad region of the Indian Ocean revealed that in multiple places the continental crust of the seafloor is 3 to 5 times of the Earth. Scientists believe that these large masses across the seafloor, combined with the geological proof in terms of the age of the zircon found on Mauritius, strongly suggest that there was once another continent in the region. They believe that it was likely a landmass that split from the nearby island of Madagascar during a tectonic rifting event that spread the ocean floor and pushed the Indian subcontinent eastward, forming this microcontinent that scientists have dubbed Mauritia. into a large archipelago. As the plate shifted and thinned following this massive crystal event, Mauritia was eventually broken up further and sunk below the ocean's waves, leaving only remnants for humans to discover billions of years later. Arctic walrus in Ireland. He was first spotted by a young girl and her father walking on the Irish beach where Wally was perched, and his presence initially alarmed marine biologists in the area, although it seemed that Wally did not share their concern. Indeed, he began making the best of his situation and started hitching rides on passing ships, which is not always an easy feat for the blubbery mammoth. Wally is approximately the size of a large cow, and his antics resulted in the capsizing of a large dinghy. However, his hitchhiking was largely successful and he traveled approximately 450 kilometers south in just 6 days. Although he was heading in the opposite direction of his Arctic Circle home, he is surely making excellent travel time and would likely be home in a matter of days if he could only get pointed in the right direction. Wally's antics drew in quite the crowd of tourists, who gathered to watch him as he hitchhiked southward on his apparent vacation. However, the crowds grew so large and included jet skiers, surfers, and paddleboarders that local conservation groups grew concerned that such a large human presence getting so close would disturb him and upset his progress as he made his way around, and were forced to remind tourists to keep their distance. Although Wally's behavior was incredibly interesting to watch, he is not the first walrus to venture outside of his Arctic Circle home. Because they use shallow water to hunt for shellfish and typically rest and sunbathe on icebergs, it is easy to imagine how they can quickly end up far from home as they move down coasts and get stuck on floating icebergs. Between 1897 and present day, there have been approximately 24 walruses spotted along the Irish coast. And if they are generally left to themselves, they will normally find their way back. Mysterious shark disappearances. Sharks are some of the most notorious survivors on our planet. Their ancestors can be directly traced back hundreds of millions of years, and, according to National Geographic, they have made it through at least 4 mass extinctions and are older than even the oldest fossil forest. However, as successful as they may be, scientists have discovered that they used to be even more plentiful in the oceans of our planet, and that 19 million years ago, some mysterious event decimated the shark population so drastically that they have never been able to recover. Recent analysis of denticles or shark scales found in fossilized samples on the seafloor has revealed an astounding array of shark species. These samples are abundant and impressively varied in the geological records dating up to around 19 million years ago, after which point the population of sharks in the open oceans across the entire globe mysteriously decreased by over 90%. Considering that sharks only suffered about 30% loss during the famous mass extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs, scientists now know that an incredibly large worldwide event must have occurred to be able to affect sharks so drastically. However, the truly strange part is that an event that large should have left a mark in other places besides just the shark population. But amazingly, nobody knows what that event could have been. There are no other markers of such an extinction in any species so far studied, and the event is not chronologically near any known major climate shifts or major evolutionary changes. And, although the cause of this strange extinction is not immediately apparent, what is clear is the effects that such a dramatically reduced population had on the other open ocean animals. Following the extinction and the immediate removal of such a large portion of formidable ocean predators, an incredible amount of diversity appeared in groups such as fish, whales, other sharks, and even seabirds, who were able to evolve much more rapidly in the absence of a large number of sharks prowling the seas. Alarmingly, it appears that in the intervening 19 million years, sharks were never able to fully recover from taking such a mysteriously large hit. And a study published by Nature has found that the number of sharks in today's modern oceans has continued to fall. Even more concerning, this decline has sped up in recent years, and since 1970, the total number of sharks in the oceans has decreased by 71% and continues to fall. The discovery of the initial hit to sharks all those millions of years ago has just served to underline to scientists the importance of top-tier predators on their ecosystems and how precarious their positions truly are. It is increasingly likely that this majestic and historically incredibly adaptable species will not be able to withstand the effects of overfishing, environmental pollution, and climate change. One thing is certain, though, and that is the fact that marine biologists will be actively looking into the results of the mysterious isolated mass shark extinction and how it affected the ocean ecosystems, as we enter the age of several potential mass extinctions. But what do you make of these three recent discoveries and Wally the walrus? Volcanoes have been a source of fear and fascination for centuries. Humanity has respected, revered, and even worshipped the world's volcanoes, while cowering from what nature could do to them. Even now, in our age of logic and technology, we find ourselves at risk of their immense power and the danger it holds over our mortal lives. So today, we'll be taking a look at three extraordinary volcanoes and their prominence in our modern day. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano turned into a boiling lake. Possibly one of the most infamous volcanoes on this earth, the Kilauea is an active shield volcano in Hawaii. It is also one of the 5 great volcanoes which make up the Hawaiian island. The estimated age of Kilauea is said to be between 210,000 and 280,000 years old. Kilauea is so active that its most recent eruption began at the end of December 2020 and concluded recently on the 23rd of May 2021. It has been erupting on and off since the early 1980s and caused destruction to businesses, buildings, and lives. Kalapana and Kemu are 2 towns that suffered greatly during eruptions, and in 2018 the Puna eruption caused 2,000 residents to evacuate their homes. To the danger of both the Puna lava vents and the wide-scale earthquakes, which combined caused one overwhelming disaster. The Puna eruption is not the topic of today's occurrence, however. Instead, we will be discussing something far more recent, though it is connected to the Puna eruption. During the May 2018 eruption, lava destroyed several rivers and a natural freshwater lake. Another eruption that began in the exact same place caused a peculiar phenomenon to occur. The idea of a lava lake, though amazing, sounds believable enough. Except lava did not simply fill an already empty pit of land during the eruption. It turned a water lake into a fiery hole. The lava first proceeded to boil the water from the lake, which had managed to grow in size for a little over a year. Since then, the lava flowed into the remaining earth, filling it and replacing the soothing waters that once inhabited the basin. The total depth of the lava was recorded to be 180 meters by the end of 2020. The volcano only started to cease in early 2021, but the level of lava increased to 225 meters by the end of May. Now the lava in the lake has subsequently cooled down and is no longer burning, but the life that once called this place home no longer resides there. Spectacular 45-foot-tall ice volcano appears in Kazakhstan. When you think of a volcano, you rarely think of ice. The two concepts seem as far removed from each other as possible, and yet an ice volcano recently formed in Kazakhstan. The temperatures in Kazakhstan can reach unimaginable levels of freezing cold, especially in the winter months up until the start of spring, and this creates the ideal environment for thick ice to layer up and create an ice volcano. The volcano is hollow. It is a tall 45-foot structure of ice and snow. The name comes from its resemblance to the lava-spitting, fear-inducing types of volcanoes we are used to, though the name is deceiving as these are a different natural phenomenon. Ice volcanoes are mounds of ice that typically form on top of during winter. The liquid flows and freezes in the ice cracks and increases in width and height over the course of hours, weeks, or months. Researchers have said that an ice volcano with enough energy can be formed within mere hours, but they are also delicate and can easily be destroyed in storms or if there's an increase in temperature. It is possible for ice volcanoes to form at sea, provided that the water is frozen subsequently, though this is incredibly rare. Once this happens, though, the depth of the ocean or sea is enough to allow the ice volcano the ability to grow even taller and stronger than it would have in a pond or hot spring. This does not happen on shores due to the abundance of other oceanic plant life siphoning the wave energy required to create these volcanoes. Although some ice volcanoes can come close and icy slush can erupt nearer to the coast and make a small mound. Originated from a hot spring. The water from it froze after the hot water spurted from inside it and it solidified as it fell back towards the ground. This process continued until it created a stunning formation. This is far from a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, as these ice volcanoes tend to form each winter in Kazakhstan, and it seems that they never fail to draw the attention of occasional tourists as well as the locals who travel to see them. Those who go to visit ice volcanoes should be wary, as although they are not as lethal as flowing lava, tourists often walk on the ice to get closer to the structures, and the ice around these mounds tends to be thin and brittle, which can end with the individual falling underneath the ice and becoming stuck in the water, not to mention that getting too close during an eruption of a hot spring-based ice volcano might result in bodily harm, as they can also happen in the US, especially in the region of the Great Lakes. When winter strikes and the frost hits, the lake's water can flow above the ice sheets, coating the surface, and over time they form a gradual icy bump which can, with time, turn to small icy mountain-like structures. Lake Erie and Ontario are the most common places within the United States where this happens. The phenomenon is not dangerous, and yet its beauty showcases just what nature is capable of and how there is glamour even in the bitterest cold of winter. In 2016, scientists spotted a structure resembling an ice volcano on the surface of Pluto. This has not yet been confirmed, but if it is an ice volcano, it is overwhelmingly big, measuring in at 90 miles wide and 2.15 miles high. Swarm of 20,000 earthquakes could make Iceland's volcanoes erupt. As of late, Iceland has experienced an abundance of earthquakes and endured a lot of seismic activity, which experts fear might awaken the ancient volcanoes of the nation. Over 20,000 earthquakes have been recorded by scientists at the Icelandic Meteorological Office since February 2021, which caused an immense number of problems for citizens of the country. The majority of the earthquakes average to a magnitude of 3, though some are higher. This at least means that they are not catastrophic but can be felt and cause moral unrest, with much fear of the magnitude potentially rising as this strange occurrence continues. Iceland has a history of volcanic eruptions resulting from earthquake-like activity, heightening stress about it happening again. The Reykjanes Peninsula is most at threat, with most seismic activity happening there. The peninsula is at an orange level, meaning that it is likely to erupt. The Icelandic government confessed that there have been pulses of volcanic activity occasionally occurring since February, and this has been at an increased rate, the most notable of which occurred near Mount Kildare. But the Scientific Council for Civil Protection stands by their statement that there is no evidence of magma incoming. That when this comes to volcanic activity, things can change instantaneously. An eruption, should it happen, would place the surrounding areas under great danger. Even if scientists are estimating it to only be a small eruption, it would result in undoubtable property damage from lava. There is also the potential for scientific estimation to be faulty, and an impromptu eruption could be far worse than assumed. Ash could also lead to a massive and cause issues for world aviation as well. Despite the potential risks, the Icelandic Prime Minister seems confident in Iceland's preparation for natural disasters, remarking that the country would know exactly what to do in such a situation. When interviewed about the matter, the Prime Minister stated, "Iceland has highly trained, educated, and experienced professionals in this area. Most importantly, the Icelandic public is used to dealing calmly many different types of natural events related to the weather or geology. Volcanoes have power over us just as other forms of natural disasters do. Hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones. It is just a reminder of our mortality and limitations against the strength our planet holds. Beautiful yet so dangerous, he could steal the lives of millions and can destroy half a nation with enough determination. It is no wonder that our ancestors respected nature." What do you make of these 3 natural volcano discoveries? If you stop to take a look at your surroundings, chances are you will find at least something worth exploring in more depth. The world around us is full of unknowns and mysteries just waiting to be discovered. If you are anything like us, you are always looking for the latest strange phenomena or discovery. We have covered a little bit of everything from bizarre archaeological discoveries to theories about extraterrestrials and unusual plants and creatures. So today, we're taking a look at 3 different strange and recent scientific discoveries that have the potential to turn the world on its head. Fungi found in Chernobyl feeds on radiation. Scientists in Russia have discovered a type of fungi in Chernobyl that uses the process of radiosynthesis to feed on the area's radiation. This fungus, now identified as Cladosporium spherosporum, has been found to block harmful radiation and use melanin to convert gamma radiation into chemical energy. In the future, scientists are interested in using this fungus to help protect astronauts from radiation in space by creating a radiation-absorbing shield layer from it. The fungus was first discovered in 1991, though at the time scientists did not fully understand its radiation blocking and converting properties. In addition to its potential use as anti-radioactive shielding material, NASA scientists are considering extracting melanin from the fungus to develop a space-approved sunscreen. According to Reedime's J.B. Cutero, a researcher at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, we know that space radiation is dangerous and that it damages matter. If you have a material that can act as a shield against radiation, it could not only protect people and structures in space, but also have very real benefits for people here on Earth. This fungus grows toward the hottest and most radioactive places, so its existence near Chernobyl is not a surprise. At Chernobyl, extreme ambient radiation still poses a huge danger to anyone who enters to this day. With this in mind, it is easy to see the advantages of having a radiation blocker to treat protective suits and reduce the ambient radiation through radiosynthesis. Even low levels of radiation, when contained, could be converted into safer, more useful renewable energy. On the International Space Station, the ambient radiation is lower compared to other parts of space, but it is higher than the levels found on Earth and therefore poses a threat to everyone on board. This fungus could help protect those living and working on the ISS and could lead to further discoveries of applications in medicine, safety, and manufacturing. We've detected the closest extragalactic FRB yet. Have we found the closest extragalactic vast radio burst? Astronomers think so. Better yet, it appears to have come from a surprising location. FRBs are powerful brief emissions of light that come from unknown sources. It is only for the last 2 decades that we have known they have existed. So many questions about them have yet to be answered. But scientists now know that the closest FRB comes from a different galaxy than ours, and it is only 11.7 million light-years from Earth. Dr. Brian Gainsler, director of the Dunlap Institute for Astronomy and Astrophysics, said in a tweet about the discovery, "We found a fast radio burst in a globular cluster. This is definitely not a place where fast radio bursts are expected to live. Just what is going on?" This relatively close FRB has been dubbed FRB 2020-120e. When we say relatively close, we mean that the FRB is about 40 times closer than the next closest extragalactic signal. It also appears, as previously mentioned, in a clump of incredibly old stars. This is not typically a place in which you would expect to find them. This discovery suggests FRBs can emerge from a wider range of environments than we previously thought. These bursts of light, however, are notoriously difficult to research. The bursts occur briefly, as in less time than the blink of an eye, and tend not to repeat. These 2 factors illustrate why the fast radio bursts are so hard to predict, trace, and understand. No matter what remains to be found about FRB 20200120e, one thing is certain. This FRB will shake up the scientific community and maybe teach us something new about star interactions in globular clusters. Only time will tell what happens next. NASA is launching tardigrades and baby squid into space. On Thursday, the 3rd of June 2021, NASA launched more than 5,000 tardigrade and 100 baby squid on a mission to the International Space Station. Carrying them to their intended destination was SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. Why did NASA want to launch these organisms into space? According to the BBC, the 128 baby bobtailed squid will be used to research how spaceflight affects different interactions between microbes. The bobtail squid glow in the dark, making it much easier to observe any changes that may occur to their bodies. Along with the squid are approximately 5,000 tardigrades, often called water bears. They were chosen to go with the squid because they are the toughest, most resilient life form on Earth. Without food or water, They have been discovered to survive for up to 30 years. They should have little trouble surviving in the uncertain conditions of space. By conducting this study, NASA hopes to gain a deeper understanding of how stress factors can affect humans in space. Since human beings have evolved to the conditions on Earth, there are many aspects of spaceflight and living in space that can wreak havoc on the body. According to the principal tardigrade investigator, Thomas Boothby of the University of Wyoming, is understand how tardigrades are surviving and reproducing in these environments and whether we can learn anything about the tricks that they are using and adapt them to safeguard astronauts. It is Boothby's hope, as well as NASA's, that we can uncover some secrets from studying these creatures that will unlock the key to better space missions and further space exploration. Experiments conducted on these creatures would be difficult to carry out on humans, to say the least. By studying these squid and tardigrades, we can gain a closer understanding of what might happen as people spend more time in space, without the risks that are often associated with carrying out human trials. It is exciting to consider what conclusions will be drawn from these experiments, as well as the impact these studies will have on our seemingly spacebound future. As we learn more, we will gladly share our findings here. It goes almost without saying that unexplained mysteries are some of the most fascinating aspects of our existence. One of the best parts of life is discovering everything you have yet to learn about the universe. What do you make of these interesting scientific discoveries? The search for advanced life is never ending. Although scientists have said that we need to look to the stars to find advanced life, there's many that have suggested that we've been looking in the wrong place, and that all this time it might have been right in front of us. There's various locations that have been put forward that could hold proof of advanced life. These include old archaeological sites, but the most recent one that's caught people's attention is that of Antarctica. It's one of the least explored places on Earth. Only a few people live here, but despite this, many interesting discoveries have been made in recent years. It's no secret that officials are interested in Antarctica. In fact, countless experiments have been conducted here since man first stepped foot on the icy continent, and many of them have advanced our knowledge. The most recent discoveries that are doing the rounds on social media, though, are those that be so easily explained. Amateur researchers have said that across Antarctica there's fresh places that are starting to melt, and that this melting ice is revealing strange-looking structures hiding underneath. It's important to note that scientists and researchers have said that there's nothing of interest in Antarctica, and that the majority of these discoveries can be explained using natural explanations. That hasn't stopped some from spending hours looking through old images of Antarctica, and also using applications like Google Earth in order to find mysterious, out-of-place looking structures. The most recent discovery was this one, which was found by an online user who suggested that it showed something being revealed from the frozen eyes. The photographs got various reactions from those who saw them, with some labeling this object as a large ship, while others said it looks like the remains of an ancient city and that it could be proof that ancient humans made it here and started building large structures. One person said the following about the discovery. If you showed someone this image and didn't tell them any context behind it, they would likely say that it looks like a building or a crash boat or possibly a ship of some sort. You can see what looks like towers and levels inside it. I find it interesting that when you say things like this were found in Antarctica, it automatically causes people to brush it aside. Science is all about learning and correcting ourselves about the history of our planet. Why couldn't this be something like a building or a ship? We need to be more open-minded about this kind of stuff." End quote. Others carried on from this and said this isn't the first time that we found something strange in Antarctica. While others said that many of the discoveries that are found here are blurry, but in the case of this one you can actually make out a lot of detail. Others went down a different route and suggested that during certain periods in history, some countries traveled to faraway regions to construct buildings, so they would have an advantage over the enemy. Some said this could have been constructed by humans when people first started traveling here. Skeptics have said these types of discoveries are not uncommon, and what people are looking at is just gaps in the snow, saying that when the surrounding ice melts it gives off the illusion that something is underneath it, when in reality all you're looking at is rocks. This isn't the only recent discovery that's been made in Antarctica. Scientists have recently reported that a massive object that could change your understanding of history is hidden beneath the Antarctic ice. This mysterious anomaly is believed to be underneath an area called Wilkes Land. The area is over 150 miles across and has a minimum depth of around 2,500 feet. Interestingly, researchers have suggested that it could be the remains of a giant asteroid, and if this is the case, it would have been more than twice the size of the asteroid that struck Mexico 66 million years ago. This could help to answer one of the planet's most mysterious events. During the Permian-Triassic, a massive extinction event happened. It caused over 96% of Earth's sea creatures and over 70% of the vertebrate organisms living on land to perish. This giant rock could have been behind that event. This mysterious anomaly was first brought to the attention of researchers in 2006, and this was when NASA satellites picked up on gravitational changes. Another announcement was made a few years back when scientists reported that they managed to reach a subglacial lake which was under Antarctica. This lake was over 3,000 feet below the surface of the ice. The subglacial Antarctic Lake's Scientific Access said the following: "It's almost 2 whole days of drilling to reach the subglacial lake during this holiday season. We had a huge team with us, and it wouldn't have been possible without them." The team of researchers included over 40 scientists, drillers, and various other staff members. The researchers were able to see a glimpse of the giant subglacial body of water, and it's estimated that it's twice the size of Manhattan. The researchers are currently studying the lake and hope to understand its depth, temperatures, and what kind of life is down there. Due to it being a remote place, some have said that there could be creatures down there unknown to science. One of the chief scientists said they weren't sure of what to expect, as it's such a new discovery, and they were still learning as they went along. Although this sounds like an easy task, it's not just a matter of digging a hole. There's specific steps that need to happen for this to work. For example, scientists needed to test that the water was clean. When they did, though, they were surprised to learn that the water was as clean as filtered water. One of the scientists on the mission said the following: "It's exciting that we are sampling the deepest standing water body humans have ever accessed beneath Antarctica. This is a slow process, though, and it will take years to collect and process the data." So what do you make of these interesting discoveries in Antarctica? One of the strangest claims circulating fringe healing science websites as well as homeopathic web pages appears to center around the claim that there exists a miraculous healing quality surrounding many different specific frequencies. Many of these websites claim that if a person is subjected to specific frequencies, often between 250 to 600 Hz, there appears to be a profound effect on the health of an individual. Unfortunately, many of these websites lack the proper education to understand the practical methods or real-world applications of this peculiar claim, and often wrap their explanations in pseudoscientific terms that are far more misleading than helpful. One of the most difficult to explain discoveries of the modern era first reared its head with veterinarians, and animal researchers took the time to study the psychology of our feline companions. The domesticated house cat. Animal behaviors and research biologists were curious as to the evolutionary reasoning for why cats purr, and the exact mechanisms for how it works. Considering there were no obvious biological factors behind the purring mechanisms, or scientifically plausible reasons, at first researchers believed that cats had a special organ located near their larynx that was responsible for generating the purring sounds, and that this unknown organ could have provided an evolutionary advantage. The theory was mostly held in the assumption that cats must be exceptional to all other species, as only the feline species are recorded as purring, and must have a special mechanism for their purring abilities. The truth, however, was far more complicated. When researchers performed X-rays and autopsies on the area of the theorized organs, scientists discovered that there was no special mechanisms behind a cat's ability to purr, describing the phenomenon more closely to that of a ghost organ. Further experimentation discovered that the cause for a feline's ability to purr comes from controlled muscle contractions of the larynx and the diaphragm. As the cat inhales and exhales, air moves over the vocal cords, and timing muscle contractions that create that iconic feline sound. This realization proved to be one of the most puzzling discoveries surrounding feline evolution, and is still a mystery to many of the best evolutionary animal biologists. How is it that the feline nervous system evolved in such a way to promote the development of purring, and why do cats seem to purr in the first place? To answer this difficult question, researchers looked at both the biological and evolutionary factors for the primary roles of purring. During their research, they found that cats who purred more when injured healed much faster than those who didn't, eventually realizing that the mechanisms for purring seemed to relate to cell regeneration, which caused a new evolutionary theory to form. Although all animals with vocal cords have the potential to purr, with necessary muscle contractions at specific timings, cats evolved the ability to the potential advantage it provided them. But how could it be that a cat's ability to purr is closely correlated with cell regeneration? It appears scientists funded by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration have conducted several developed studies into the healing powers of vibrational frequencies. According to NASA researchers, who study the effects of the human body subjected to conditions on the International Space Station, astronauts subjected to 0 Gs in space suffer from immense bone loss, specifically caused by a lack of high-impact exercise. This depletion of bone tissue can lead to a variety of health problems, issues with posture, and eventual muscle depletion over time, and prevents many astronauts from staying much longer in space than is required. Hoping to solve the issue of bone depletion, researchers began to look at alternative methods of providing the human body with high-impact stimuli. Originally, the solution to the problem was created when NASA researchers designed several tightening straps, and these were used to pull astronauts down, while instructing them to run on treadmills at scheduled interviews. Though the research and practical applications showed promise, the necessary pressure and force required to stimulate high-impact bone regeneration was not sufficient to maintain healthy bone structures and only worked to slightly delay the progressive bone depletion. A viable and practical solution, however, was right around the corner. An independent team of researchers, after having received funding from NASA to solve the problem, began their research with testing the practical application of vibrational planes. Attached to the feet of human test subjects, they found that the vibration of the plates would radiate through the entire bone structure and would begin a stable process of bone regeneration. They theorized that the vibrational frequencies of the bone plates would cause micro-impact sites all across the bone structure, recreating normal Earth-like conditions and leading to the regeneration of bone strength for the astronauts. Once the necessary data was gathered, NASA engineers applied the findings to those on the International Space Station and found incredible results. To this day, astronauts on the ISS still use vibration pads, and this is to match the necessary requirements of high-impact exercise and prevent bone and muscular degeneration. Although the science behind the healing powers of vibrational technologies is still undergoing test trials and looking for meaningful results, those being arising recent years from pseudoscientific organizations, claiming that the healing properties of vibrational technologies are due to nonsensical terminology. The evidence shows that any vibrational frequency, if sustained long enough, and delivered through mechanical means via a metal-plated vibration of the body, can yield substantial health results. In fact, the leading researcher in anti-aging, David Sinclair, published several books surrounding the discovery of anti-aging properties, and this was in used proteins related to epigenetic theory. In his discoveries, he found that histones that are specifically produced to regenerate DNA damage and cellular destruction and reverse the symptoms of aging would begin to trigger under conditions considered stressful to individuals. It could be that, through his research, the practical applications of vibrational technologies can see fruitful results. Cellular regeneration could take place immediately following the use of vibrational frequencies that cause a light disturbance to the cells in the body. In reaction to this disturbance, the sirtuin genes are most likely triggered in response and begin their process in repairing DNA, preventing telomere shortening, and treating the symptoms of aging on cells. Some of the most promising results in the treatment of using vibrational frequencies as seen in elderly patients. Those who suffer from osteoporosis see strengthening of their bone over repeated and scheduled use of vibrating metal planes. Growth in muscle mass and reduction in muscle depletion is also seen in those with scheduled uses lasting longer than 30 minutes. Unfortunately, the science behind the healing properties of vibrational frequencies is still incredibly young, and many of the facts surrounding the technology are often modeled behind scam websites or out-there theory claims. In more recent years, however, researchers have begun looking into the possibility of using ultrasonic waves to target areas in the body for destruction. According to researchers analyzing the effects of sudden exertive force on fluid dynamics, an effect known as cavity formation can cause water subjected to a high momentum to create a temporary vacuum as the water within the system has not yet had the time to move. In layman's terms, this means that if a container filled with water suddenly moves fast enough, that the water is unable to match the speed, the vacuum pocket will form within the water. In an attempt to maintain the momentum, the water will then push to fill this cavity vacuum and cause devastating effects on any surrounding container. Researchers in ultrasonic testing realized that with the use of specific audio frequencies, an effect similar to a vacuum cavity formation in water can be achieved in the human body and can be more accurate. A safer way to potentially destroy cancer cells as compared to side effect-inducing chemotherapy and targeted radiation treatments. Although the research and practical application is still under testing, the evidence already shows that the field of medicine involving audio and vibrational frequencies is a more than legitimate field of study and should yield incredible results over the coming decades. So what are your thoughts surrounding these strange findings related to the healing powers of specific frequencies across the audio spectrum? Artificial intelligence has just revealed the best way to find advanced civilizations, and it's not by detecting faraway signals, but rather searching local solar bodies in order to see if artifacts have been left behind. One of the problems with sending out messages and flying to nearby planets is that by the time we reach them, the civilization that once inhabited them might be long gone. To put it into perspective, the distance between Earth and the gas giant Jupiter is around 600 million miles, an extremely short distance when talking about space travel. Scientists estimate that depending on the mission and equipment, it would take between 2 and 6 years to reach Jupiter. Now let's say we want to go and visit the exoplanet TOI 700d, a planet that scientists said has many features that would make it potentially habitable. This planet is over 101 light-years away from Earth, quite far when considering that 1 light-year is around 5,878,625,370 miles. This means that traveling vast distances across space isn't the answer if we want to find other life forms. The distance is just too far, and we don't have the technology to get us there any faster. This is why the artificial intelligence suggested that humans look closer to Earth. Not only does it save us sending out probes and messages than waiting countless years for replies, but it also saves humanity a lot of money. The study suggested that extraterrestrial civilizations may have sent out artifacts to communicate with other civilizations, and these could be found close to our solar system. One idea was that these artifacts could come in the form of robotic extraterrestrial probes. Although these artifacts could potentially be very old, there's still a chance that they may be working. One of the first places that was suggested that we look was that of our moon. James Bedford, a physicist at Microwave Science in California, got on board with the idea and even said it's not a bad idea if we look through data we have of the moon, in order to see if we can find anything of interest. He said the following: "You can see Neil Armstrong's footprint on the moon in some photos, but only a handful of these images have been inspected by human eyes. We need to use artificial intelligence software to look for structures, for signs of artificiality, which could benefit sciences on Earth, such as archaeology." End quote. He further added that NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has taken over 2 million photographs of the moon since 2009, but yet most of these have never been seen by human eyes. It's interesting to think about the fact that strange artifacts could be lurking on the moon, and that scientists are open to the idea to see if they could find anything of interest. Of course, there's those that believe that we've already found strange artifacts on the moon that can't be explained using natural explanations. One structure that's said to be present on the moon is that of a pyramid. In fact, amateur researchers have said that the moon's surface is full of them and that this could prove that it's not only humans that's interested in this celestial body. Theories started to run wild after NASA shared an interesting photograph taken during Apollo 17. Interestingly, the space agency listed this photograph as blank, and when first looking at it, this does appear to be the case. However, when people increase the brightness and contrast, it appears that this photograph is not blank and features a rather large-looking structure, which many have compared to a pyramid. Interestingly, the most recent pyramid to have been discovered on the moon was made back in 2019. Photographs soon started to make their rounds on social media, with various theories being put forward in order to explain what people were saying. Another mysterious structure that some say could be proof of advanced life forms is this one. Those who have seen it have said it looks like a building, and that you can definitely see that it doesn't look like the surrounding area. Due to these types of photographs, it's caused some amateur researchers to suggest that there's many of these artifacts scattered across the lunar surface, and that many of them have gone unnoticed by space agencies. Another mysterious photograph that's often used by believers is this one, which they say shows what could be an ancient city. They point out again that this structure doesn't fit in with the rest of the background and that it looks like it is a natural. It seems the only time will tell whether we find anything mysterious on our moon, with some saying that there's plenty of areas of the moon that are of interest, and that the structures that have been found by people should be investigated further. Another place in our solar system where scientists think there could be life is that of Saturn's moon Enceladus. This claim comes after researchers suggest that its ocean is over 1 billion years old, forever saying this is a sweet spot. NASA reported at the 2019 Astrobiology Science Conference that the time frame is long enough for there to be life. One of the research scientists said the following: "In the scenario that best matches the real moons, the ocean of Enceladus is around 1 billion years old. That's good news for life. It should have had enough time to arise, and there should be some energy to power it." End quote. Cassini was a spacecraft that arrived in the Saturn system back in 2001. It made 127 flybys of Titan, 23 flybys of Enceladus. The Cassini mission ended on September 15, 2017, and this was due to loss of contact. After making these flybys, though, Cassini gave researchers an incredible insight into how the moon is doing and revealed that it's not just the airless icy body as it was previously assumed. The detection of the thermal infrared in the 4 tiger stripe fractures means that Enceladus heats up from the inside out. It's believed the friction caused by the gravitational forces of Saturn has been affecting the heating of Enceladus. On our planet, hydrothermal vents are filled with organisms we cannot see anywhere else, with scientists saying that there's whole worlds in these vents that many of us have never seen before. This could be what's happening on Enceladus. Researchers have said there is evidence of hydrothermal vents on the seafloor of Enceladus, and that these hydrothermal vents usually form locations where magma and seawater meet. Water runs down the cracks right into the core, where it's heated and then comes back out again. All of the data collected related to Enceladus points out to the fact that it really does have the 3 ingredients required for life. So what do you make of these interesting discoveries? Scientists, researchers, and online sleuths have all tried to explain the mysterious case of Gunfer's Dole. Sadly, every year countless people vanish into thin air, never to be seen again by friends and family. And sadly, in many of these cases, there's limited clues that have been left behind, meaning that it makes it extremely hard to track down where the last movements were. Over 170,000 people go missing every year in the UK alone, with the worldwide number being in the millions. People who are countless hours to find missing individuals have said that people go missing for a wide range of reasons, and there is often more than one cause that's made them leave. Missing people usually have things that are going on in their lives that are pushing them to leave. As of right now, though, even with CCTV cameras, more officers, and an increase in volunteers, this number hasn't dramatically decreased. Some of the most mysterious cases are those that involve people who have communicated with those around them, having theories for what's going on, and even making chilling predictions about what will happen to them in the near future. This is what happened with Gunther Stoll. The story of Gunther Stoll still remains a mystery to this day. During 1984, Gunther was having a paranoid episode that was affecting his life and those around him. He would say things to his wife such as, I think they're after me. Gunther's wife reported that this wasn't uncommon and that it seemed like something had recently happened in his life that started to cause these episodes, saying that whatever it was really started to worry him. The mystery would be named Yogzi. Although various details had been released about what happened, people had been left wondering whether Gunther's paranoia was based on something or someone real, or whether it was all in his head. The strange event started on the night of the 25th of October. It's reported that Gunther Stoll was sitting down when he suddenly said the following, "I get it, I understand." He quickly grabbed a blank piece of paper and scribbled down Yogzi, or Y06TZE. Shortly after writing this down, Gunther quickly left his house and got in his Volkswagen Golf. He was then seen by locals at his favorite pub. After arriving, he ordered a beer. However, before the drink could reach his lips, he fell down to the floor. People that were around him said he wasn't drunk, but did say he seemed stressed and nervous about something. Gunther was able to get to his feet and quickly left the pub without giving away much information. After leaving, Gunther had been missing for around 2 hours, but he then made a quick visit to an old friend. The woman said that she wasn't going to open the door and told him to go home. Eerily before leaving, he said that horrible incidents would take place tonight and that he needed help. Unfortunately, no one listened to his pleas. Something did happen to poor Gunther. A few hours later at 3 a.m., a pair of truck drivers discovered a wrecked Volkswagen car in a ditch. The driver ran to the emergency telephone and called for help. It was discovered that Gunther was inside and he was holding on to his last breath. He was able to reveal that it wasn't just him in the car, but there was also 4 others. He said that these 4 people were not friends and that they all fled the scene. Unfortunately, Gunther did not survive, and he passed away while emergency services tried to get him to the hospital. The only bit of clue to this mystery is the note he wrote before leaving his home. However, nobody has been able to figure out what it means. Some have speculated that Gunther was not well, and this is why the events played out. Others think there is a more sinister explanation and that Yogzi was actually a license plate number linked to those people who were in the car with him. So what happened to Gunther Stoll? After the police arrived, they reported that Stoll had no clothes on and that they could see no reason as to why he was in the conditions he was in. Even more questions were raised when investigators received his autopsy results, saying that he had been injured before the car accident. One theory police came up with was that he was hit on purpose by a group of people. They then placed him in his car, possibly had a chat with him, and then left him there to pass away. Locals and people who knew him said they were confused when they were told that he said that people were going to get him, and reported that no one ever had anything against him. The only evidence we have is what he said to his wife. This has caused some to theorize that perhaps he led a double life, and that life eventually caught up with him. So he felt his only chances of surviving was to tell the truth to his wife. Police did check out this theory though, but reported that they couldn't find anything in his records that would suggest he got involved with the wrong people, reporting that there was no criminal record and no one ever came forward to back up these theories. None of the men that Gunther said were in the car have ever come forward. Something happened that night that led to Gunther falling and hitting his head. It's thought he may have seen someone that was after him, and this caused him to go into shock. Others have suggested that he may have been a whistleblower and that he was trying to uncover an operation that he'd been involved in. It's thought he left the house because he was trying to protect his wife and that he didn't want any harm to come to her. As of right now, this mystery is not close to being solved, and every year people suggest theories that could help investigators solve what happened to Gunther. None of them, however, have helped in solving the mystery of Gunfistel. So what do you guys make of this mystery? What do you think happened to Gunfistel? And do you think those men he encountered had something to do with his passing? Science and technology are constantly advancing and developing. This opens up completely new avenues for research into not only future and prospective methods for improving our vast knowledge and understanding of the universe, but also previous discoveries. Every day, new discoveries in the past, present, and future are made. Some of them go into further detail about us, our race, our mind, and our past. The rest adds to the suspicion, notably the astronomical discoveries. So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 recent discoveries from unbelievable to a little strange, yet fascinating. Man finds puppies trapped inside sealed aquarium. 2 puppies were trapped with no way out. They were stuck in an aquarium with a cement-sealed top that prevented them from escaping. They had been abandoned in a stream and were miraculously rescued by a Mississippi man seeking for his own dog when he happened to spot them. When Matt Williamson went hunting for his lost dog, he had no idea he would come across 2 more creatures in desperate need of help. However, while searching along a rural Mississippi road, he came across an odd sight, a glass aquarium with the lid sealed shut. When he approached it, he discovered 2 terrified black and white puppies inside. As I drew closer, I noticed these eyes gazing out at me as if they needed assistance, Williamson told WAPT. The aquarium's top was sealed with cement, indicating that whoever trapped these puppies inside had no intention of allowing them to survive. The scared puppies were rescued by local sheriff's deputies who removed the top of the tank. They were then transferred to the Mississippi Animal Rescue League in neighboring Jackson, where they are being housed together in a quiet environment as they recover from their experience. The puppies had a fever when they arrived and were a little rattled and scared, but shelter workers are hopeful that they are able to be adopted soon. There are currently no leads on who brutally trapped these puppies in a fish tank and abandoned them. The pups, however, will be able to spend the rest of their lives in loving forever homes because of Williamson. Unfortunately, there is no word yet about Williamson's own lost dog. The new evidence of human habitation at Pangaea Sadi Cave excavations at the Pangaea Sadi Cave site in Kenya have uncovered evidence of long-term human occupancy spanning the Middle Stone Age to the Iron Age. Beginning 67,000 years ago, this evidence demonstrates incremental shifts in cultural, technological, and symbolic developments, but the area was occupied for 78,000 years in total. There is no indication that humans migrated over coastal superhighways. The Pangaea Sadi Cave site, approximately 15 kilometers from the modern coast, was excavated and investigated by researchers from the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History. Carefully prepared for the Middle Stone Age, stone toolkits were found in deposits dating back to 78,000 years ago. But the recovery of small artifacts beginning at 67,000 years ago shows a distinct shift in technology to the later Stone Age. According to a press release, the shrinking of stone implements may indicate changes in hunting tactics and behavior. However, there is a mix of technological developments in Pangaea Sedi layers from around 67,000 years ago to after 67,000 years ago, and no drastic break in behavior can be observed at any time, arguing against the cognitive or cultural revolutions postulated by certain archaeologists. Furthermore, no significant break in human habitation occurs during the 74,000-year-old Toba volcanic supereruption, bolstering claims that the so-called volcanic winter did not result in the near extinction of human populations. Even though hints of increased occupation intensity from 60,000 years ago suggest populations were growing in size, the deep archaeological sequence of the Pangaea Sadi Cave has yielded a fascinating new cultural record that demonstrates long-term cultural complexity. Carved bones, ostrich eggshell beads, seashell beads, and worked clay are among the objects discovered. Pangaea Sadi is home to Kenya's oldest bead, which dates back 65,000 years, around 33,000 years ago. While this shows that people were in contact with the coast, there is little indication of regular subsidence utilization of marine resources. After 25,000 years, ostrich eggshell beads became increasingly popular, and after 10,000 years, coastal shell use resumed. Carved bone, carved tusk, a decorated bone tube, a small bone point, and modified clay from 48,000 to 25,000 years ago. Despite the fact that they are indicative of behavioral complexity and symbolism, their sporadic occurrence in the cave sequence refutes a paradigm for a behavioral or cognitive revolution at any one period. The discovery of the Pangaea Sadi Cave will undoubtedly revolutionize archaeologists' perspectives and preconceptions. According to Dr. Nicole Boivin, project principal investigator and director of the Department of Archaeology at the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History. Dr. Patrick Roberts, group leader of the Stable Isotopes Lab, explained, "Occupation in a tropical forest grassland setting adds to our knowledge that our species lived in a variety of habitats in Africa." Professor Michael Petralia writes, "The discoveries at Pangaea Sudi cast doubt on notions concerning the usage of beaches as a kind of superhighway that funneled migrating humans out of Africa and across the Indian Ocean rim. Study says trees have feelings. Trees have feelings, make friends and look after each other like an old couple, according to a recent study. Science has proven that trees are far more intelligent than we ever anticipated. They are capable of feeling pain and experiencing emotions such as fear. Trees prefer to snuggle and stand close together. They enjoy having visitors and prefer to take things slowly. These are only a few of the discoveries made by tree whisperer Peter Wallaben." Peter is a German researcher who not only appreciates being in the presence of trees, but has dedicated his life to learning about them. Trees do indeed have friendship, he claims. They have the ability to create attachments similar to that of an elderly couple when one looks after the other. Trees have emotions. Furthermore, trees are thought to have a heartbeat in the same way that humans do. Dr. Andreas Linsky of Aarhus University in Denmark utilized a laser scanning technique to precisely quantify the position of branches and leaves on 22 different tree and shrub species. He published observations of significant unanticipated movement cycles last year. Some trees with their own form of a heartbeat elevate and lower their branches numerous throughout the night, signaling a cycle of water and sugar transfer. In a statement, Zelinsky added, "We found a previously unknown periodic movement of up to 1 centimeter in cycles of 2 to 6 hours. The movement must be linked to changes in water pressure within the plants, implying that the tree is pumping. As previously assumed, water transport is not simply a steady-state flow. Some trees lower their branches by up to 10 centimeters during the night before rising them with the sun. We assumed only select families engaged in the process since it is so slow and delicate, but we are now seeing that it is increasingly universal. During the course of a night, a magnolia tree goes through 3 full cycles of modifying its branches, indicating changing water pressure. Plants, like humans, have skin that reacts to their surroundings, and this is critical to their existence. Even while plants like eyes, hearing, and a tongue, their skin may perform many of the same activities. Plants are not just aware of when it rains or when it is windy, they can also react to it. But what do you make of these discoveries? While many have aimed to climb them, not everyone is prepared for what they might find at the top. Mountains are some of the more adventurous hikes and thrilling expeditions people can venture on, but that does not mean there are not strange findings waiting to be uncovered. Today, we will be counting down 3 mysterious mountain discoveries. Hikers find mystery skeleton on remote mountain in California. Back in 2019, 2 hikers stumbled across a rather unpleasant discovery that would soon change the tone of their hiking trip. Hikers Brandon Fallon and Tyler Hoffa were hiking across the Sierra Nevada mountain. The 14,000-foot hike is a tourist attraction bringing inexperienced adventurers from throughout America. Though when the pair deviated from their route, about 3 hours away from the peak, they found what appeared to be a human skull between boulders just off of the trail. Fallon states, "My first thought was maybe it was a prop or something like you see in a science class. Unfortunately, a closer inspection revealed other bones throughout the clearing, and beneath some boulders, an almost entirely undamaged human skeleton, equipped with what were once leather shoes and a belt. The sun exposure had resulted in a bleaching effect, making the skull appear incredibly white after what could have been years outside. The pair's first choice of action would have been staying beside the remains, not touching them and phoning the appropriate authorities. However, being 12 miles into the next day of their trek and 3 hours from the mountain summit, there was no phone service to make the call. Unsure as to the appropriate actions, the pair kept a record of what they had seen, photographing the bones, the skeleton, and only touching one foot to capture a clearer photo. Once they made it to the top of their journey, Fallon and Hoffa were able to call 911 and fill them in on the bizarre turn of events. Just days later, the California Highway Patrol helicopters managed to successfully track down and remove the skeletal remains. Following this startling finding, the investigators from the Inyo County Sheriff's Office aimed to identify who this missing hiker was, what exactly prevented them from getting any further than this spot in what has been dubbed the bowl, and how long they had been there for. The bowl refers to the last bit of the hike that leads to the top of Mount Williamson. Tinley Trun, an employee at Elevation Sierra Adventure Essentials, completed the hike 2 years prior to this discovery. He explained that the hikers must hop between sharp boulders, that dropping your phone means making peace with it being gone forever, and twisting your ankle means accepting a bitter, painful defeat or, as he said, you're done for. He said all of this is truer if the hiker took a less direct, more remote path, where it is even less likely you could be found or helped. The next stage in this research involved an analysis of the remains. A professor emerita of anthropology at the University of California, Santa Cruz explained that the timeline for a body to decay to a skeleton is not linear. This is dependent on a number of factors, perhaps most significantly the temperature of the area and the insects in the area. For example, in a warm climate with specific flies, a body could have decayed to a skeleton within just 6 months, whereas a cold environment would preserve the body for longer. Dr. Galloway and other investigators expressed the want for soft tissue to be present as this, within just a few months, could answer questions about the timeline of the death. Using only bones, however, makes figuring out more specific years a much more difficult process. Other clues could lie within the shoes and belt as well as the physical remains. New measures like carbon-14 testing can also help answer some questions. If soft tissue is not present on the body. Following this, DNA testing from hair, ear bones or teeth can be correlated to see if there is a match on any existing missing persons reports. So far, no missing persons reports have matched up with the location of the skeleton. The sheriff's office spokeswoman said there was no evidence of foul play. Fallon and Hoffa reported a dent in the skull, appearing fractured, and the position of the it may have been laid out as if it were buried. They did, however, admit their lack of forensic knowledge. The sheriff's office has denied all of the above, labeling Fallon and Hoffa's claims as inaccurate. Despite all the speculation, there are no concrete answers surrounding this mystery skeleton. The hiking trip gone amiss is sure to stick with these young hikers for decades to come. The mysterious holes of Peru, Indiana, Peru. There is a strip of holes, an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 of them, described as man-sized, forming the Band of Holes or Monte Sirpi, Serpent Mountain in Spanish. Whilst there has been a great deal of speculation into the purpose and creation of these holes, not much is definitively known. Some have suggested they were storage pits, built within the Inca Empire, whilst others have theorized they were graves or places to take defense in battle. The band covers a north to south direction, traveling for 1.5 kilometers. These holes range from 50 to 100 centimeters deep and are each around 1 meter in diameter, a sizing often described as man-sized. Modern researchers have formed many speculations. In 1933, Robert Shippey of National Geographic published a photograph of the area from above. This caught the eye of many, drawing the holes of Peru somewhat into the spotlight. In 1953, Victor Wolfgang von Hagen took over the narration in his writing entitled The Royal Road of the Inca. He called the holes pre-Inca graves, describing the shaking linework to be the curves of a serpent, hence the secondary name Monte Sirp. The Inca road system, written by archaeologist John Hislop, describes them as storage possibilities whilst acknowledging that this is merely speculation. Still, the storage hypothesis, if accurate, would make the Band of Holes one of the Inca Empire's largest storage areas. A more modern suggestion made in 2015 suggests that the holes could be a form of measurement to record gifts, produce, and inventory, particularly those presented as a tribute. These holes could have formed one part of a process that informed official documents. As this idea was formed, archaeologists from UCLA were able to visit the site and capture photographs of the area through the use of a drone. We may never completely determine what these mysterious holes are for, though the more modern explanations are seemingly shifting away from the macabre suggestion of graves. Viking village discovered in the Norwegian mountains. As recently as 2021, a breakthrough dating back to the Viking Age has been made after the remains of a settlement were uncovered on a quiet stretch of mountain. Over the past few years, the Secrets of the Ice Project, organized by Inlander County, has revealed breaking news and headline-worthy findings. This has allowed archaeological sites to be examined and investigated, especially when they are at risk of being damaged, rendering much of the possible research useless as a result of melting glaciers. When glacier archaeologists took to the mountains in 2020, they found a lost mountain pass that was dated back to the Viking Age, though this left us with more questions than it had answered. It is already established that Vikings lived by the ocean or the fjord to allow for quick access to the water. When the Lenbreen mountain pass was found with no written documentation, it raised lots of questions as to how and why it was there. There were plenty of sled, animals and household remains along the path, but still with little information as to why Lenbreen Pass walks away from the water. What use did it have in the Viking Age? The logical way to answer these questions was to simply follow the path. Initial speculation saw ideas such as pastures, farms, and long-distance travelers using this pass, though the true discovery was perhaps much more exciting. Lars Peeler reveals that the team made their way to a lost Viking settlement. They moved through summer farms and found paths well worn into the land from people and animals, though it took an unexpected detour from the expected route as the path progressed. It was Reidar Marstein, a local resident who practiced archaeology as a hobby, who discovered the remains of buildings. Upon the first survey, 21 structures were recorded. Peeler stated that their outer walls were visible as low embankments, and small tests with an auger centrally in the ruins revealed charcoal in the ground, perhaps from hearths. These technical terms to the layman amongst us combined to create a classically historical appearance. Small test excavations allowed the team to confirm that it was indeed walls from former houses that had been found. All the time samples placed the structures between 750 and 1150, the near entirety of the Viking Age. The next step in this exciting research opportunity is to continue to explore the area, looking for more answers to the questions we continue to find, hopefully whilst the glaciers remain intact. The mountains can be home to many discoveries, and you never know what you might find. From human remains to the remains of a village to ancient mysteries we have still not figured out. The mountains continue to hide plenty of secrets. But what do you make of these mysterious mountain discoveries? People right now are reporting that there's something wrong with the monkeys in Thailand and that they've been disorientated and acting strange for the last few weeks, with local residents saying that they're starting to charge at locals. Those who live close to the region have said they won't approach them and that at the moment they're doing all they can to avoid them. The first incident happened a few weeks back when they were observed gathering in large. When people would walk or drive by, the monkeys would charge at them, so much so that people could be seen running away, with some of the monkeys even latching onto them and slapping them on their heads. Various different explanations have been put forward by locals and others to explain why they're acting like this, with some who live in Thailand saying that the reason they're acting out is because of food shortages, and that they're running up to humans to see if they have food on them. Others carried on from this and said that when they're hungry they start to get annoyed, and that if anything approaches them they will lash out. Some of the locals have said that although the videos look funny when they're attacking humans, some of the injuries that people are sustaining are quite bad. One of the locals said the following: "I've recorded the monkeys acting like this, and right now people aren't sure why their behavior has changed. There's some who've said that they're declaring war on humans, and others who think it's coming down to shortages. Anywhere these monkeys want to go they're able to, and they're not afraid to take on things like large groups of humans and moving cars." End quote. One local had this to say: "Man is asking why these creatures are acting the way they are, but we're not looking at the bigger picture. Look what humans have done to the surrounding area. And ask yourself why the wildlife has come more inland. The truth is they haven't. We've built these large establishments right next to their homes, and now people are getting frustrated because they're encountering the monkeys more than they used to. This will always happen when you take over the natural environment. Expect more incidents like this to happen. Another person who lives in Thailand said it's like Planet of the Apes. They even said that the groups are becoming bigger and bigger as the monkeys have started to band together, theorizing that they may have done this to ensure that they will survive, and that if they do attack, their power is in numbers. One user who studies animal behavior said that two large groups of monkeys are actually fighting throughout the area, which is why it looks like there's so many. But they did warn that the win of the battle will gain victory over the city. And all that will happen is you will see an increase in monkeys roaming through the area because they were in that territory. One man was even seen standing up to the monkeys, but reports said this angered one of the monkeys, and a member of the clan ran up to him and drop-kicked him in the face, causing the man to run off. There's many different stories that are currently being shared of these monkeys taking on humans, and wildlife experts have mirrored what others have said. And that's that the more we're building closer to the natural world, the more of these types of incidents are going to be reported. The battle has now been going on for the last few weeks, but locals are hoping that the monkeys will move on. Interestingly, what many people might not be aware of is that for years people have been encountering mysterious humanoids, many of which look like primitive humans. One of the most famous ones is that of the Monkey Man of New Delhi, but one that's not very well known is that of the Bucket Timur Monkey Man, this being described as a primate that lives in the jungles of Singapore. According to local legends, this forest-dwelling creature has been living in the forest for thousands of years. This mysterious creature was first reported by Japanese soldiers, detailing that they would see mysterious humanoid-like creatures in the jungles, describing them as being smaller than a human, but being very hairy. Over the years, a number of local residents have reported seeing the creature. All the alleged sightings of the creature have been in and around the Bucket Timur rainforest. The creature is believed to be 3 to 6 feet tall and walks on its hind legs. Bucket Timur Nature Reserve is home to thousands of monkeys, and the researchers believe that there is a possibility that the crab-eating macaque monkeys could be at times mistaken for the Monkey Man. However, the biggest difference between the description of the Bucket Timur Monkey Man crab-eating macaque monkeys is their size. For the last 10 years, people have reported seeing the Monkey Man, and a few years back a 48-year-old taxi driver reported seeing the elusive creature. According to the taxi driver, he was driving his taxi near the fire station which is located on the Upper Bucket Timur Road, when he suddenly hit a strange creature that was running in the road. It looked like a very large monkey. Creature was injured as a result of the accident. However, shortly after this, it ran into the forest and wasn't seen again. Various sources state that the man drove off after hitting the creature. However, the next morning time marks could be seen where the car had brained. It was suggested that whatever was hit by the vehicle did survive, and managed to find shelter in the nearby forest. Another recent encounter with an alleged monkey man was reported by a 29-year-old woman. One cold, foggy morning she was walking towards a bus stop when she saw someone near a rubbish bin. When she approached, the creature made a loud animal sound and ran into the forest. She described the creature as gray, hairy, walking like a human but having a monkey face. The woman immediately called the police. However, the creature had vanished into the jungle and wasn't able to be found. So what do you make of this monkey uprising? 607 people are estimated to go missing in the world every year. 607 people gone without a trace. How many assume new identities? How many are buried, undisturbed for decades until new construction uncovers old remains? The longer a person is missing, the higher the chances of closing their case dwindles. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mysteries. Mary Curie found buried in her backyard. When 36-year-old Mary Curie bought a house with her husband Albert in 1960, she did not know it would also become her final resting place. She had 2 children and happily married when she moved into the house on 5445 Black Street in East Liberty, Pennsylvania, or so everyone thought. Albert Curie was described by neighbors as a sweet, funny, laid-back gentleman. He and Mary and their 2 teenage children lived in that house on Black Street for 4 short years before Mary went missing. Albert told their children that their mother had packed her things and left them, presumably for another man. This was also the story that friends and family friends were told about Mary's disappearance. Though no one believed that Mary was the type of person to abandon her kids seemingly overnight, without showing any signs that she was about to do so. With Mary gone, they had little else to go on. Teresa Rocco, head of the Police Bureau's Missing Persons Unit, as well as the godmother to one of Mary's children, knew there had to be more to the case. She waited for Albert to file a police report. He would never file a missing persons report, though. Mary's sister and mother did try to file, but according to their accounts, they were not taken seriously. This is disputed by the Pittsburgh police, who claim they never received a missing persons report in this case, and that Mary was assumed to have left of her own free will. The following year, Albert Decoure passed away in a motor vehicle accident. It was later presumed that he was traveling at such a high rate of speed that he was intentionally taking his own life. For some, this solidified their suspicions of foul play in the Mary Arcuri disappearance. There were other signs noted from the family that cast more doubt onto Albert's story, though. Before taking his own life and shortly after Mary went missing, Albert claimed that a large freezer had been stolen out of their garage in broad daylight. A family member reflected that it was the perfect size to store Mary's body to prevent it from decomposing. Shortly after that, Albert installed a cement slab in their backyard as a kind of patio. Mary's great-nephew, Charles Spurner, was only 5 years old when Mary disappeared, but he remembers vividly that his mother thought that Albert had hurt Mary and put her under the cement patio. That was where Mary was found during a construction site dig in 2018. Of course, her remains were in such an advanced state of decomposition that no determination was made as to how she passed away. The medical examiner's office ruled her manner of loss of life as undetermined. Since he passed away in 1965, Albert has been suspected of taking the life of his late wife. He cannot be charged with the evidence available now, and so far the case remains open. Disappearance of Revel Balme. Revel Balme met a similar fate, although her remains have not been found. Last seen in 1994, Revel was a 22-year-old professional dancer and model. She led a double life, however, that she kept hidden from her closest friends and family. Revel was also a casual escort, but according to some reports, Revel had started doing this in order to save money for a trip to Japan that would further her professional dancing career. The last person believed to see Revel alive was Gavin Sammer. He claims that he had won $150 at a casino that night, which he decided to spend on a woman. When he called the agency that Revel worked for, he gave a fake name. Thankfully, the agent did its due diligence at that point and noticed that the name Gavin gave was not the name his phone was registered to. When they called him back and told him what they found, he conceded and gave his real name. Gavin Samir claimed to have had a girlfriend at the time, which may have been his reason for giving a fake name. Sammer claims after their appointment, he drove Revel to the Red Tomato Inn and left her there. There are no witnesses to corroborate this. Around this location, Revel's last known location, her makeup bag, keys, and one shoe was found. Revel's body has not been recovered. Summer remains the #1 person of interest in the case, a fact that he is straightforward with when he is interviewed. Samir spent about 15 years living in Tasmania as a recluse, until 2018 when he pleaded guilty to old theft charges. Strangely, years later, another person close to Samir suffered a sudden death. In April of 2020, he was arrested for assaulting his former roommate. He was accused of committing violation offenses against her will, but the charges were dropped when she passed away tragically in an explosion in her apartment. Though this does not prove motive, it does seem too strange to be a coincidence. In May of 2021, the family announced a $1 million award for anyone with information that would lead to the discovery of Revel's remains. Mary Arcuri's remains were not found for 60 years. Revel's family hoped to have some closure before then. They have already waited 26 years in the dark, and sadly, Both of her parents passed away without ever finding out what happened to their daughter. Janine Vaughn disappearance. Another story that families are hoping will be brought back into the spotlight is the story of Janine Vaughn. Janine was last seen on December 7, 2001 at 4 a.m., where CCTV footage shows her on Keppel Street, Bathurst. The security footage shows her getting into the front passenger seat of a bright red four-door medium-sized sedan. Police interviewed over 1,000 people in the investigation of Janine's disappearance until 2003, when she was presumed deceased. Among those investigated for her disappearance was a local policeman, Brad Hoseman. The Police Integrity Commission did not release their findings for some time. However, Brad was forced to leave the force with no retirement benefits. Around the time of Janine's disappearance, Brad told the police that he was staying with his mother near Newcastle. However, he changed his story when he was investigated by the Police Integrity Commission, admitting that he had been in Bathurst. In 2009, the coroner who had taken the case recreated what was last known of Janine's movements on the day she went missing. He walked along the street, dimming the street lights to make the recreation as real as possible. During this time, Brad Hoseman was brought up once again. Friends of Vaughn had claimed that Hoseman would often walk by the shop where she worked and wave to her while she was inside. According to her friends, she had expressed concerns about Hoseman's actions seeming a little like stalking, but nothing was taken too seriously, and no paperwork was ever filed in the matter. Vaughn's former boyfriend of 5 years recalled that she did complain about notes, flowers, and even lingerie being left on her car while she was at work. Is it a coincidence that Hoseman knew where she worked and purposely walked by to wave to her often? Did he have any reason to be walking by and seeking her out in the window? Was it because he was on his way to her car to leave small tokens and gifts? We can only speculate, as no one has come forward with information about the matter. We can only hope that technology and science progresses in such a way that allows us to find out what happened to these women after so many years. The people who may have information on any of these cases are aging, and their memories are as well. We can only hope for their families that someone can give them peace sooner rather than later. But what do you make of these disappearances? An air traffic controller has just reported that the Jetman is back. For those unaware, for the last few years pilots and air traffic controllers have reported seeing mysterious flying humans, with pilots detailing that at some points these flying beings were able to overtake them. The reports were even passed on to the FBI. But as of right now, it's unclear who or what exactly is behind the mysterious sightings. The most recent report came from an air traffic controller who could be heard talking to Sky Westland. The incident happened yesterday close to Los Angeles International Airport. What's sort is that the majority of these sightings have happened around Los Angeles Airport, although people are confused as to how this flying humanoid is able to overtake planes. At first it was suggested that it may have been a drone of some sort, but when it was announced that they were flying at incredibly fast speeds, others suggested more out there theories. Last year, 4 pilots reported seeing something similar around the same area, while pilots in England reported that they had seen something similar, noting that the flying humanoids were able to fly 100 miles per hour. The report on Wednesday details the following. A Boeing 747 pilot reported seeing objects that might resemble a jetpack 15 miles east of LAX at 5,000 feet altitude. A Federal Aviation Administration spokesperson said in a statement, "Out of an abundance of caution, air traffic controllers alerted other pilots in the vicinity." In recordings obtained by the CBS network, the air traffic controls can be heard saying the following: "SkyWest 3626, use caution. The Jetman is back. Let me know if you see him. SkyWest 326. Did you see the UFO? We are looking, but we didn't see Iron Man. Evergreen 8023, used caution." There was a report of a man in a jetpack around 5,000 feet in the vicinity of Los Angeles. As of right now, no one knows who is behind the sightings of the flying humanoid. Some amateur pilots have suggested that what's being seen is that of an unidentified flying object, while others have said it could be what's being described, and that's that it's a man on a jetpack flying around Los Angeles. David Mahone, CEO of LA-based Jetpack Aviation, said that he doubts that someone using a jetpack saying the following: "They'd run out of fuel. They use fuel too quickly." Mayman said adding a typical flight time for a jetpack is around 5 to 10 minutes. If it's a real jetpack, it's noisy. People would have heard it take off and land. Others followed on from this and said it's definitely not someone using a jetpack and that all of the testimonies point towards it being something else, noting that the speeds and the way it's able to change direction proves that it's not someone using a jetpack. One idea is that this could be an unidentified flying object in the shape of a human, as that would explain how it's able to travel so fast and why no one hears it and why it hasn't been captured on video. Although some say this isn't a UFO, at this moment in time technically this is a UFO. It's a flying object that can't be identified. Other amateur researchers have come forward and said this isn't the first time this type of sighting has been reported, going on to say that nearly all of these cases still to this day remain a mystery. The number of pilots who have come forward in detail seeing mysterious objects isn't anything new, but perhaps the sad part about this is that most of these get ignored. It seems almost bizarre that someone like a pilot can report seeing something mysterious and no further investigation is carried out. After all, these are the people that spend the most amount of time in the sky, so when they report something strange, it should be taken more seriously. One person said the following: "It's weird how both of these reports have been made so close to one another. It's a really interesting story. Could this be some kind of new technology that's being carried out above Los Angeles? Even where it's odd, the pilots are saying that it looks like a humanoid on a jetpack. To my knowledge, there's no jetpack in the world that's able to take a human to these kinds of heights." End quote. Back in 2014, news broke the pilots on a passenger plane were left confused when they witnessed a flying humanoid gun pass them at 3,500 feet. They couldn't wrap their heads around how a human was able to zip past them so quick, and secondly, where it come from. Aviation experts then admitted that they were too baffled by the reported sightings of a flying humanoid. After making the news, the flying humanoid was then given the name of the Superman of Majorsfield. The mysterious individual suddenly appeared out of nowhere and was able to overtake the Airbus 320. This was while the plane was flying close to Cheshire Town in England. The pilot and the first officer reported the strange sighting to air traffic control, where at first they thought the individual may have been a paraglider. However, they couldn't see any gear on the humanoid and so ruled this out. Things got even more confusing when air traffic control reported that they hadn't picked anything up on radar. It was as if the mysterious individual had appeared then suddenly vanished. Teams on the ground were sure that the individual that was seen must have been a paraglider. However, further checks were carried out to see if any paragliders or people using parachutes were seen in the area, and it turns out that no one was in the area during the strange encounter. Officials at the UK Airports Board who investigate near misses in British airspace came forward and said that they think this is one of those cases that will likely never be solved. The report states the following: they sighted the object a few 100 meters in the 11 o'clock position 2 to 300 feet above. It passed down the left-hand side of the aircraft at 100 to 200 meters. The crew only saw it fleetingly. There was no time to avoid action, and they reported that they based their assumptions in it being a person under a canopy. At the time, the skies were clear and the pilots had visibility of around 6 miles. None of them remember seeing a canopy, though. It wasn't long before experts from the British Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association got involved, and even they said that at the time of the report and due to weather conditions, it would have been impossible for a single flyer to be in the area and traveling at the speeds they were. So what do you make of these strange reports, and who or what do you think is behind it? Although humans have been on this earth for 101,000 years, sometimes we tend to forget how short of a time that truly is in the grand scheme of the universe, as well as how quickly the very ground under our feet can change with only a moment's notice. The environment and terrain of our planet has shifted dramatically in the eons before the first humans ever walked the earth and could very well do so again in the near future, especially as the impacts of our habitation are felt in almost every square centimeter of our planet. So today, we will be looking at 3 cases where the topography of Earth shifted suddenly and dramatically and what could have caused such changes. Fossils found in Batar Geica crater. Deep in the permafrost of Siberia lies an enormous mega-slump crater known as the Batar-Gaika crater. At around 1 kilometer long and over 86 meters deep, this massive void in the Earth is only increasing in size and at a rapid rate. The area around Batar-Gaika is composed of dense, hard permafrost created by an ice freezing into the ground and being buried for 1,000 of years, resulting in layers of packed ice and sediment. However, around 60 years ago, the area fell victim to the rapid deforestation that has become so common in the modern world, and there were not enough trees left to adequately shade the ground, causing the permafrost to slowly thaw and collapse, creating the massive crater. And while locals in the region avoid it at all costs and view it superstitiously as a door to the underworld, what this massive hole in the permafrost can reveal about the past is of great interest to scientists. In much the same way that analysis of the rings of a felled tree can tell stories of climates and weather events from the past, so can the collapsed permafrost as they reveal through exposed sediment layers what the soil and earth composition was like 1 million of years ago. Nowhere else in the world is there such a visible and complete record of almost every change in climate for the last 200,000 years, so scientists have moved quickly to take advantage of the situation. And this knowledge of past climates is vital as scientists try to determine what effects global warming will continue to have on the delicate and already precarious permafrost layer, and consequently, what that deterioration will mean for the rest of the world. Interestingly, knowledge of past climate changes and the potential effects of modern-day climate change is not the only interesting thing that has turned up in the ever-widening Siberian crater. As the permafrost has melted down and revealed layers of the past, several Ice Age fossils have been revealed that would otherwise have remained stuck under the hardened permafrost forever. Among the finds was a 40,000-year-old foal that was found perfectly preserved, with even its hair still totally intact. The permafrost acts as an enormous freezer of sorts for the ancient prehistoric animals who had lost their lives and were overtaken by the ice, allowing them to remain frozen and protected from the elements until the widening Batar-Gaika revealed them to scientists as perfectly preserved time capsules of the distant past. Although the melting permafrost and rapidly growing crater is an immense cause for concern and an indication of just how fragile the seemingly tough Siberian permafrost truly is when faced with human intervention and global warming, scientists have been able to take advantage of a bad situation by using it as an opportunity to learn about the distant past. It's not often that such clear examples of what the Earth looked like 1,000 of years ago come to light, and the well-defined sediment history combined with dozens of perfectly preserved fossils have allowed scientists to study and learn an immense amount about what the Siberian climate was like 1,000 of years ago, as well as how continued human intervention and global warming might continue to affect the region and the planet in general. Mysterious Siberian craters. Batar-Gaika is not the only crater to have appeared in the Siberian permafrost in recent history. In fact, during the past few years, scientists have discovered at least 7 mysterious craters deep in the Siberian tundra. While some initially believed them to be the works of aliens, meteorites, or even explosions from secret weapons testing, scientists studying the large holes have determined that they likely stem from the same cause as their sister crater, climate change. The 7 holes in the permafrost were discovered in a virtually deserted region of Siberia known as the End of the World, and are, on average, around 1 kilometer across. Because the region is so uninhabited, the 7 craters were mostly discovered by using video and satellite footage, and scientists assume that there could be dozens more in isolated areas that have yet to be discovered. Although these mysterious caverns have been determined to be caused by climate change much like Batar-Gaika, the two are very different. The 7 craters were all discovered in northwest Siberia in an area called Yamalo-Ninetsky that is rich in natural underground energy sources such as methane. Researchers and scientists believe that it is this methane which is responsible for the craters as it erupts from the permafrost much like a volcano, leaving the gigantic chasms behind. As the northern environment continues to heat up as a result of global warming, the underground permafrost that has been frozen solid for 1,000 of years begins to thaw, releasing methane gas under the surface and gradually creating an immense amount of pressure that continues to build until it cannot be contained any longer and explodes through the surface, leaving behind gaping holes. Because of the remote location, there are no cities or humans around to hear the explosions, and the craters are discovered much later. Once they appear, there is a space of about 2 to 3 years where scientists must discover and study them before they fill with water and turn into small lakes. Once they are discovered, experts must study the holes carefully before they fill up to try to determine what danger they might pose, especially as the permafrost continues to warm and the methane explosions move steadily southward. Methane is highly volatile and flammable, and there are several gas deposits dangerously near some of the craters. Although the craters have only appeared in remote and uninhabited areas so far, if an explosion were to occur underneath a city or near a gas deposit, the results would no doubt be incredibly lethal. However, for now, scientists have no idea how to contain the spread of the explosions or even to determine how likely they are to spread. They must continue to find and study the craters as they appear and attempt to understand and thus diminish the danger of continued global warming in the delicate permafrost of Siberia. Sinkhole in Mexico. Siberia is not the only region to experience massive holes suddenly appearing in the earth. Santa Maria, Zacatepec, a town in Puebla, Mexico not far from Mexico City, experienced this very thing in late May of 2021 when a massive sinkhole suddenly opened up in the earth. While at first the hole was less than 5 meters in diameter, in the span of only a few days, it expanded to almost 70 meters. As it grew, layers of the previously stable and solid earth collapsed downward, and the massive pit rapidly began to fill with water that poured in from all sides. Because the crater was so massive and grew so quickly, spectators and locals were drawn to the area, but police quickly cordoned it off as they realized how fast it was expanding. However, as they had no idea what geological event might have caused such a large expanse of ground to give way, experts are treating the situation as a matter of enormous risk, according to Puebla State Governor Miguel Barbosa. Until they can determine what could have caused this phenomenon, the risks that it could pose are largely unknown, and Barbosa emphasized that public safety remains a #1 priority in dealing with the situation. The sinkhole initially formed right outside of the nearby town, a short distance from civilization, but as its size began to increase, so did the amount of danger it posed. Currently, a home on the outskirts of the sinkhole is in jeopardy of falling into it if the expansion does not slow. The Sanchez family, who was evacuated for their own safety, reported hearing a thunderous booming noise. They never imagined that the cause would be a sinkhole filled with bubbling, rushing water so near their home, threatening to swallow it up at any moment. Although the true cause of this particularly massive sinkhole is still being investigated, sinkholes are usually created when flowing groundwater below the surface begins to wash away the rock and earth below ground. This creates an empty pocket of air that gradually gets bigger and bigger as the groundwater continues to circulate, unbeknownst to those walking around on seemingly stable earth above. Eventually, the space becomes too large to support the surface, and it collapses in a sudden rush. Larger sinkholes like the one that appeared in Mexico are usually influenced by drilling or other human activities like building or mining that cause instability underground. As officials begin to stabilize the scene in Mexico and determine the extent of the immediate danger posed to those living nearby, the underlying cause of this particular sinkhole will likely become evident in time. But what do you make of these 3 interesting discoveries? Every day, discoveries are made that help us better understand the past, present, and future. So today we'll be looking at 3 amazing discoveries. Mariana Trench, deepest ever subdive, finds a plastic bag. Researchers today are finding objects that expose mankind's far-reaching impact on the ecosystem, and one of these was recently made at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Victor Vescovo, a 53-year-old financier and former Navy Reserve captain, traveled approximately 7 miles to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The dive, which surpassed a record set by Titanic filmmaker James Cameron in 2012, revealed sad proof of humanity's detrimental impact on the planet. The divers found plastic bags and wrappers at the ocean's deepest depths. Vescovo and his team identified 4 new species while traveling 35,853 feet below the surface, which could help throw light on Earth's enigmatic origins. Vescovo said the following: I believe that going to extremes is a natural propensity of man, and I also believe that wanting to push ourselves to our limits is a beautiful component of our nature, which has helped us get to where we are now as a species. Although oceanographers Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard first investigated Challenger Deep in 1960, this is the first on-camera evidence of what lies beneath the Pacific. The goal of the project is to make sonar mapping of Earth's deepest locations, such as the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic Ocean, the South Sandwich Trench in the South Atlantic, the Java Trench in the Indian Ocean, and the Malloy Deep in the Arctic Ocean. Vescovo continued with the following: I crisscrossed all over the bottom looking for various wildlife, perhaps unique geological formations or rocks, man-made artifacts, and yes, trying to see if there was an even deeper position than where the bathyscaphe Trieste went back in 1960. Giant prawn-like amphipods and bottom-feeding sea cucumbers were among the findings found aboard the Limiting Factor, the world's first titanium-hulled, two-person submersible to go this deep. Also, the scientists want to examine the deep-water critters for plastic buildup. While it is impossible to say how far those plastics drifted to end up in one of the world's lowest points, our oceans are quickly becoming giant trash cans. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch, an island of garbage the size of Texas in the open ocean between Hawaii and California, continues to add more man-made waste to its expanding surface area. Despite all of those dives, humanity has only seen about 5% of the ocean. Scientists are being pushed to develop new deep-sea research methods as part of a new astronomers see a star spaghettified by a black hole. For the first time, material filaments wrapped around a supermassive black hole have been discovered, indicating that a star trapped by the black hole's gravity has been destroyed by spaghettification. Scientists have only just discovered evidence of a physical filament from a star in the neighborhood of the black hole. A team of astronomers from the Netherlands Institute for Space Research, or ESRIN, and Radboud University in the Netherlands discovered a spaghettified star around the poles of a distant black hole. This new study was published in the journal Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society on March 24th. The effect, also known as tidal disruption, occurs because the black hole's gravity pulls more on the side of the star that is closest to it. The black hole breaks the star apart before sucking in its mass and transforming it into a lengthy filament in the process. Previously, the only proof of a star dying after passing too close to a galaxy center came in the form of short bursts of electromagnetic radiation emitted by supermassive black holes. Around the equator of black holes, accreted matter disks have been discovered. The disk orbits around the equator at an extremely high speed, emitting heat, X-rays, and gamma rays in the process. It is made of material that is drawn to but not yet swallowed by the black hole. The Doppler effect stretches or shrinks electromagnetic waves, depending on whether the source is moving towards or away from the observer, and is created by the fast motion of the material in the accretion disk. As a result, the light radiated by moving away from the Earth component of the accretion disk would be brighter. The scientists, on the other hand, found no proof of this. The researchers also stated that they could detect X-rays, indicating that they were facing the black hole's pole. According to the statement, the accretion disk is the sole part of a black hole system that releases this type of radiation. We wouldn't see the accretion disk's X-rays if we were staring edge-on. Supermassive black holes, which are millions or even billions of times heavier than the Sun, are thought to exist at the center of most galaxies. Over billions of years, they expand and engulf everything that falls into their gravitational pull. The brilliant X-rays that black holes release as they feed on gas and matter from their surroundings allow astronomers to discover them. Stars orbiting in the center of galaxies may occasionally go too close to black holes and become trapped by their pull. They are drawn closer and closer to the black hole, eventually succumbing to spaghettification. Newly identified species of saber-toothed cat was so big it hunted rhinos in America. Scientists have identified a gigantic new saber-toothed cat species that would have prowled the wide regions of North America between 5 and 9 million years ago. Using comprehensive fossil comparison techniques, they've come to the conclusion that this would have been one of the largest cats ever discovered. According to this latest study, This new species has a body mass of around 274 kilograms. It is a prehistoric relative of the well-known Smilodon. To identify the new species, scientists investigated and compared fossil specimens, including upper limbs and teeth, with fossils gathered from museum collections in Oregon, Idaho, Texas, and California. One of the big stories of all of this is that we ended up uncovering specimen after specimen of this giant cat in museums across Western North America, says Gonzaga University paleontologist John. They were big cats. The age and size of the fossils provided an excellent starting point for researchers who then utilized digital photos and specialized software to uncover commonalities between the relics and, more importantly, differences from other cat species. The specimens all came from the same huge cat, and this cat was a previously unknown species. The teeth provided additional proof, although the researchers did say that the intricacies of how early saber-toothed cats were connected are fuzzy. The largest upper arm or humerus fossil discovered in the study was almost 1.4 times the size of the same bone in a modern-day lion. May have preyed on them as well as camels and sloths much larger than we are used to seeing in the modern day. While the iconic saber teeth have yet to be discovered, it is notable that this new species has been identified primarily from humerus bones, demonstrating what can be accomplished when cutting-edge analytical tools are combined with many hours of meticulous research. Researchers working on the project said the following: giant cats have been known to exist in Europe, Asia, and Africa, and now we have our giant saber-toothed cat that lived in North America during this period. Either we have this ancient gigantic saber-toothed cat that scattered to all of those continents, or we have repeated separate evolution of this gigantic body size on every continent in what remains a relatively hyperspecialized mode of hunting. It's a fascinating paleontological puzzle. But what do you make of these three discoveries? Hiking through the forest is an activity that's enjoyed by many. It's relaxing and it can make you appreciate the small things in life. In fact, Science Research and Daily Science announced that spending time outside is good for you, and that living close to nature has a wide range of health benefits. That's, of course, as long as you don't run into anything mysterious. For years now, stories have been told of mysterious creatures living in the dense forest regions of our planet, that every so often hikers come into contact with them. There's a variety of different locations that are said to house these mysterious creatures. North America has the well-known Bigfoot, a large bipedal humanoid that's allegedly been encountered by humans for thousands of years, while Indonesia has the orang pendek, a humanoid-looking creature that's said to resemble that of a prehistoric human. Recently, an individual on Reddit by the name of Ms. Robin Hood captured a mysterious photograph while hiking with their dog. They said that they often walk through this area with their dog, but that this time something seemed off. They managed to snap a photograph and post it online, noting that this thing was much taller than they were. They said the following: "It's strange because a couple of times while I've walked past this tree, I've seen something in the corner of my eye, and I look at the tree with a strange feeling, but yesterday it was different." Some who saw the image pointed out that the trees in the background looked strange, and suggested that the creature in the image was a Bigfoot, a creature that researchers have said bends and breaks branches. Others said this was a really clear photograph of something strange, and that this could be the real deal. As of right now, the original poster said they plan to go back and hope they can find out what this thing was. While many reports suggest the creatures are hostile, there's also numerous reports that suggest a more gentle nature. A vile stench is often said to precede them, as well as tree knocking, screams, or even revealing themselves briefly before vanishing. Despite giving human sons of their presence, they have still managed to evade human contact for thousands of years, ever since the first reported sightings. Though numerous signs are often reported before Bigfoot sightings, UFO phenomena is one of the most common. It's estimated that around 20% of all Bigfoot sightings coincide with unidentified flying objects. One account of a UFO in Bigfoot originates from 1888. This was a meeting between Cataranches and a group of Native Americans, and it happened in Northern California. The natives had described 3 crazy bears that came down from the sky, and this was in a small craft. The craft left the creatures in the woods before flying off. Another report was made by a woman, and this was in Ohio back in 1973. The mother and daughter were both asleep when around midnight a beam of light came down from an umbrella-shaped craft. Upon seeing why the light was shining in the woods, they noticed grayish beings walking towards the beam. Within a short amount of time, both the beings and craft had disappeared. The Central Intelligence Agency also investigated a report of a Bigfoot in UFO. And this was at Pennsylvania, and it happened on July 31, 1966. The report was filed alongside thousands of other UFO reports as part of the infamous Project Bluebird. For tourists from New York were visiting the popular destination when the car became stuck in the sand after a day of relaxing on the beach. Gerald LeBeau was one of the four and was sent to call for a tow truck. The other three stayed in the car and waited for help until around 10 p.m. when a police patrol car stopped to see if the group were okay. The group were told that a tow truck was on the way, and so the police officers said they would call back within the hour to ensure that they'd managed to pull their car free. After approximately 35 minutes, the police returned, only to be told by one of the members that they just witnessed something strange hovering above the woods. The officers, along with Douglas Tibbetts, went out into the woods to investigate what they'd seen. The remaining two members of the group stayed with the car until the others returned. The officers and Tibbetts managed to walk roughly 300 yards from the car before they heard the car's horn, which caused them to turn around and hurry back to the car. As soon as they arrived, the two women who were left with the car were visibly shaken, claiming that they'd just witnessed a dark figure, larger than a man, with a big head and wide shoulders. No hands or face visible, and it appeared that its back was turned. The creature was also heard to be scratching the car's roof before one of the members had sounded the horn, which scared the creature away. Investigators later dismissed the reporters being a raccoon, but the witnesses were offended by this, stating that they know the difference between a raccoon and a large humanoid. Another mysterious creature is that of the orang pendek. The orang pendek is said to be a two-legged ape that lives in the western islands of Indonesia. It's been cited by the locals around the island and also by foreign researchers. Orang pendek is Indonesian for the short one, and it's proposed to be a species of primates that has not yet been discovered, possibly belonging to the genus Homo. Over time, so many people have reported seeing the creature, including travelers, natives, and researchers, that many have gone looking for the cryptid or accidentally saw it by chance. Our appendix's most common features that have been confirmed by the many sightings include a standing height of 2 to 5 feet, moving on two legs like humans do, and having gray or golden brown fur. The strangest observation is that these creatures have facial features that are more human-like than monkeys, which has resulted in the belief that the orang pendek could be a distant long human cousin, possibly with a common ancestor. From what the locals of Indonesia say, the orang pendek has high intelligence and can hide from being detected while watching people, making them fear it for its clever nature. So what do you make of this interesting photograph?